Hello, welcome back. It was supposed to be just another peaceful morning in Baton Rouge. At the Swaggart home, Jimmy Swaggart had done what he always did, his devotion, his coffee. A few quiet hymns, but that day, something was off. His wife, Frances, could sense it right away. He didn't look right. He said he just felt a little heaviness in his chest, trying to brush it off, but then everything shifted. As he stood up, he clutched his chest and collapsed. Frances screamed his name, dropped to the floor beside him, and called 911 with trembling hands while holding onto the man she'd spent most of her life with. Paramedics came quickly, but for her, it felt like forever. Jimmy was still breathing, but barely. Donnie, their son, arrived just as they wheeled his father out. His face turned pale. The fear on everyone's face said more than words ever could. At the hospital, doctors confirmed it a heart attack, serious but not yet fatal. Still, the next couple of days would be critical. Frances clutched her Bible and rocked quietly in the waiting room, whispering prayers while Donnie walked the halls. His heart weighed down with memories and dread as staff from their ministry arrived. Most kept silent. This wasn't just about a preacher getting sick. This was a man who had spent his life pouring out his soul, now lying still and silent. Frances stayed at his side once he was moved to ICU. The beeping monitors and tubes didn't shake her as much as the thought that she might lose him. She whispered words of encouragement, held his hand, and refused to step away even for a moment. Donnie stood outside the room, flooded by old memories, revival tents, sermons, long nights on the road, and he couldn't believe this was happening. People started praying. First at the church, then in homes, in other cities, other countries. No formal announcement had been made, but word had spread quickly among those closest to the ministry. At the church, a few staff members started praying at the altar, then others joined. And soon the sanctuary was filled. There was no music, no performance, just raw, desperate faith. In the church office, the phones rang non-stop. People from all over shared their love, their gratitude, and their prayers. It wasn't about Jimmy's fame anymore. It was about what he'd meant to people. Strangers called just to say, "He changed my life." A quiet gathering turned into a powerful, spontaneous prayer vigil. Donnie spoke to the crowd, reminding them this wasn't about a celebrity preacher, but a man, a father, a husband, a servant. At home, Frances visited Jimmy's study for the first time since the heart attack. She picked up his yellow notepad from the desk. The sermon he hadn't preached yet was titled "When the Heart Breaks, the Spirit Speaks." The words were unpolished but deeply moving. One line read, "The loudest message from heaven sometimes comes in silence." She brought the notes back to the hospital and read them aloud to him, believing he could hear every word. It was a moment of deep connection between a wife and her husband, between a believer and God. Then on the fourth morning, something changed. A nurse noticed Jimmy's fingers twitch, then his eyes slowly opened. Frances was right there and heard him whisper her name. She broke down in tears. Donnie rushed in, overwhelmed with relief. Doctors were amazed. Jimmy wasn't just waking up, he was responding. The prayers, the faith, the waiting, it had all carried them through. Jimmy's voice was weak, but he said something none of them would forget. "I heard the prayers, I felt them." Despite the doctor's warnings to rest, Jimmy asked for one thing: to pray with Frances. They held hands and prayed for everyone who had stood with them, not just for his healing, but for the hearts that had lifted his name up in prayer. That night, Donnie looked up at the sky outside the hospital and whispered, "Thank you, Lord, for more time." Soon, Jimmy requested to record a short message for those who had prayed. It was just audio, no fanfare. His voice was fragile but powerful. He thanked everyone and said even when he couldn't speak, he knew people were speaking to God for him. He said he didn't know why he was given more time, but promised to use every moment for God. That short recording reached thousands and brought many to tears. Comments poured in from around the world. People said they could feel God through his voice. That message reminded everyone that even in weakness, God is close. Frances sat beside him that night and smiled for the first time in days. She leaned in and told him, "You said what needed to be said, Jimmy, and the world heard you." In that hospital room, surrounded by silence and machines, a powerful truth came to life, not through a sermon, but through suffering, prayer, and love. Jimmy Swaggart hadn't just survived. He'd become a living message of what it means to truly walk by faith.